Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to this edition of Your Right to Know. Why do we say your right to know? Because there is so many things that's happening that we don't know. There is so many things that happened that we have a right to know, but we do not know. So today we're going to speak about something that has happened to many of us, I myself included, has happened to a lot of us. Sometimes you get disciplinary at work, you get let go, you get sacked, you get bullied, you get all sorts of things that has happened to you at work. But just because you didn't know what to do, you just left it like that. Because you have no idea what to do and you had no idea where to go. So without further ado, today I'm going to have someone that is in a better position to explain to us. I have the question, he has the answers. We need to find out, how can we save ourselves from all these unlawful disciplinary orders, unlawful let go, sacked, all sorts of things that has happened to us as immigrants. Sometimes we feel like because we are immigrants, we do not have the right to have a certain things done accordingly. That's what we believe, but that is not the case. So I'm going to introduce my guest of today. I'm at the studio and he's at home. He's a very busy man, so he has given me his time to come and have a chat with me. Hello, Ake.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you
Thank you very.
today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much for inviting me for the session today. And I think, as you said, it's really important, really, for many of us in the migrant community to really understand our right in the workplace. It's really important.
I know it's really, really important for us to know our rights because we do not know. So basically, that's the purpose of our show. That's what is called Your Right to Know, because we have a right to know what we're entitled to. We have a right to know our rights at the workplace, but many of us, we do not know. So we want you to teach us. What have you brought for us today? Before we go into my questions, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, so my name is Aki. I am the founder and director of Migrant at Work. So what we do, Migrant at Work is a small organization based in Birmingham. So we deal with issue labor law between at the intersection between immigration law and employment law. So that's what we do. So I am also the Deputy General Secretary of a trade union in the Ivory Coast. I have my degree in international relations and my master's degree in international human rights law.
You do quite a lot. But I like the fact that you do want to big up yourself. You said a small organization. There is nothing such as a small organization. You do what you do and you deserve to get your praises for that, Aki. Why are you saying small? It's not small. You do a lot of work. Because I tried to really find a lot about
Well,
you today, but you do quite a lot, so it's not small.
yeah, we do quite a lot. We are quite busy, but in some of the size, we are small because it's five of us and two of us really active on the ground. So in terms of the size of the organization, it's a small organization. But in terms of the work we do, we have referral from different organizations, including Citizens as Bureau from London, from Bristol, from Liverpool, and Birmingham itself.
So, okay. Imagine I was working
Mhm.
today and then all of a sudden I've been told that you're sacked without no explanation, a made up story that you were sacked because maybe you were stealing but without no proof, or because just somebody said something, they've accused you of something without having it being investigated, they just let you go. What can you do about that?
Well, the first thing really, if it's like anywhere in normal life, if anyone has any accusation against you, they have to tell you what it is. As you said, if the employer just simply sacks you, you just turn up to work, they say, well, we don't want you anymore, just go home. That's where you have to understand the procedure because in terms of dismissal, before your employer dismiss you, they have to go through what we call the ACAS sort of practice and the process. They have to invite you to a disciplinary hearing to hear a side of the story. So let's, for example, they say you have stolen something in a workplace. So they have to invite you, send you the invitation letter, make clear the accusation they have against you at least 5 or 7 days before the date of the hearing so that you can prepare yourself to your hearing. If you're a member of the trade union, you have the legal right to have a member of the trade union to represent you in the workplace. If you're not a member of the trade union, you can get a work colleague to represent you. And sometimes many people are confused when they say a workplace colleague. So let's say you work in Birmingham and the company has a branch in London and you have a friend or colleague who's working with that company, it's not in Birmingham, it's based in London. Okay. There is nothing in the law that prevents you from asking your company to make the arrangement for that person in London to come to represent you in Birmingham. Because what the law says is that you have the legal right to have a workplace colleague to represent you. So it is entirely to you who you believe is best to represent you. Your company, your manager cannot impose the person you want to represent you. So that's the first thing to really understand. So once you have all these accusations laid before you, they have given you your right to representation. You go to this meeting, you need to have somebody taking the note of the meeting. Once you have finished the meeting, it's very important for the manager who has conducted the meeting to give you the note of the meeting, for you to read to make sure that these minutes are accurate. If they're accurate and you can sign them, if they're not, you ask them to correct. If they refuse, don't sign it. It's simple as that. Because if you sign, then later it can be used against you in court or wherever you want to do after that, because they will rely on that to make the decision on the matter in consideration.
So basically, you can't just let go of someone that comes and tell you at work that is done, your work is finished because of this. You can't just accept it. You have to go through all these procedures. So what if those procedures aren't being met? Like they haven't given you no letters, they haven't invited you for disciplinary hearings, nothing at all. All they tell you is you have been let go, pack your stuff, empty your things, and go. What can you do?
So if you're being sacked this way, and it happened many times, and the issue is that many of us in the community, as soon as they tell us that, then we just go and we don't take any action. But if something like this happens, you have the right to challenge your employer. You can raise a grievance to challenge your employer, and if they refuse to listen to your grievance, then you can. That's why it's important to get in touch with a local community organization so that they can support you because you have the right to take your employer to court if you've been dismissed. Now, it will be your lawyer or your community organization who will find a lawyer for you to determine, really, to assess the merit of your case. What is really important to understand is that you have 3 months minus 1 day. So the day the incident happened to take a legal action in court. If you miss this 3 month deadline, then you will not be able to take action in court against your employer.
But how do you know all of this when you're workplace? Do you have to be registered with some kind of a union? Do you have to be a part of a group? Do you have to be a part of an association for you to have the knowledge of everything you're telling us today? Because many of us do not know all of this you're saying. So how do you know about this? Like someone
That's
like
that's
someone
one
like me that's working, how do I know where to go?
that's the problem because when you get to work, nobody explains to you your right at work. So if in your workplace you have a trade union, sometimes trade union have a collective agreement with the employer, so where they can they can get into the workplace, and then the company can organize a meeting where you have trade union come into your workplace to explain to you what the trade union is and what you can do. So if you are in that workplace where there is a collective agreement, then you can join the trade union, and trade union can negotiate on your behalf or can support you. But if you don't have a recognition agreement in that workplace, it does not prevent you from joining any trade union. Anyone has a legal right to join a trade union. No one can stop you. And many employers sometimes will tell you that you don't have the right to join the trade union. Some would even put that in the contract, as I have seen, but oh, this is illegal because you have a legal right to join the trade union. Nobody can stop you.
But many of us, they don't really, tell us that we
And
have the
one of
right to
the
do
issue we are
that.
having,
Go on, I can hear you.
sorry, yeah, go on.
Yeah, so but many of us do not
Yeah, so
actually. Can you hear me now?
you go on. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
go on, go on.
All right. So what I wanted to say is, we know there is a union out there. So what if at your
Hmm.
workplace that you get signed a contract today, but nobody tells you about it, and many of us we do not like to read. Let's be realistic here, Aki. We don't like to read. We don't like to read. You've been looking for a job for so long, and suddenly they tell you you've got a job. All you do is, oh yeah, contract. Yeah, I've got a job, full time, part time. Where do I sign it? Blah, 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 blah. That's it. That's what we do. So we don't read. We don't really read.
Yeah,
That's why we don't know our right to work.
what you need to what people need to understand with employment law and your right at work is the same as when you sign a tenancy agreement. When you sign a tenancy agreement, you have the key, you have the house, it's so beautiful, it's great. But you have to remember that down the line, you might potentially leave that property. If you haven't inspected that property properly, the day you leave the house, they will say, well, you have damaged it, you have damaged that, and they will take your deposit. So that's exactly the same thing. So before you sign your contract of employment, or as soon as they have given you your contract of employment, you don't have any obligation to sign your contract of employment right away. So once they have given it to you, you can take your time and read it. If you don't understand what is written in the contract, then you can get in touch with the Citizen Advice Bureau, for example, in your local area, or you can get in touch with us because we know that many of us in the community we don't read those contracts, and where we read it
Yeah,
because it's not our first language, or maybe it
exactly.
is, but sometimes employers put some terms and conditions in there that you don't really understand. So it is really important to get in touch with somebody so that they can, community organization or us, so we can help you to read through this contract. And one thing we have started to do, or we've been doing for the past 12 months, is to train people from our community to understand employment law. So we are providing those kind of training online because it's really important for people from our community to understand the basic of employment law so that we are not being exploited. And in addition to that, what is challenging for us is immigration law. Because before, we just have to deal with employment law. Now we have our migration status come into play. So if you are an immigrant in this country, your employer has to do the right to work check before you can work. The problem with immigration law is that they have two different legislations. So you have the Immigration Act 1971. This legislation control immigration in this country. It allows you who it tells you who can come to the country and then the condition linked to your migration status. And you have another provision, the immigration um, uh, restriction 2007. So what this one does is tell employer what kind of document should be accepted by the employer before you can work. So on the one hand, you have one legislation that tells you that you have this document, you have these conditions, So you are good to go. But on the other hand, the other legislation is tell employer that, well, these documents are good to to stay in this country, but they're not good enough to work. So you have two different legislation that contradict one another, and that's the reason why we see many of us in the community who are being exploited because in the labor market, you have immigration law and employment law that conflict one another, and these are two different pieces of legislation and quite complex. So even employer don't understand. Immigration law is quite complex. Even immigration judges says that it is complex. So the government allow employer who have no knowledge and no skills to determine our immigration status. This is explain why we are being so exploited in the workplace.
How many how many warnings do you need to be given before you can be let go lawfully? How many warnings that you are entitled to? I think we've lost him there. Guys, do not worry because we know it's COVID, so we're doing it online and it's on Zoom. Sometimes the connection can play up a little bit.
So I can't hear you.
You can hear me now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Aki. I can hear you perfectly. Okay.
All right, that's
Did you
what I
get
can
my
see. I can
question
hear
or
you.
should I repeat it?
Yeah, yes, please repeat your question.
Okay. How many warnings can you get or are you entitled to before you get let go lawfully?
Well, they have to give you at least written warning, first verbal warning, another written warning, and then a final written warning. They have to give you. It's not a number of warning they have to give you. It's that they have to
Mm-hmm.
go through a proper process. Or
Okay.
if you breach a company policy, it can, or for example, this would depend on what is in your contract of employment. For gross misconduct, for example, they can sack you on the spot.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really depends. Everything really depend on what is a contract of employment and what you it depends on what you call. For example, if you say gross misconduct, if it's not written in your contract of employment, then they can sack you for something that is not written in your contract of employment. So
And
your
then
contract of
again,
employment is key, really.
so then again, you wouldn't know because we don't read. This is it. You wouldn't know is it in your right in your contract? Oh,
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
really
problem. Yeah, we
serious
don't read,
here.
and we need
That's the
to read.
problem. We have that problem. You wouldn't know because you don't read. You wouldn't actually know that am I entitled to it? Are they doing the right thing? Is this on my contract? Or is not on my contract? So by the time you go back to your contract, first of all, that you can't even find where you put it. You can't even find a copy of it. So when they bring you their copy, they show you what was written in it. You're thinking, oh, I'm actually done. I'm actually done because I didn't read it. So I think the best thing for us to do, Ake, is we can know our rights, but we need to be able to read contract before we sign it. That is something that we really need to be strict about in our African communities. That before you sign any contract, make sure you read the contract and know exactly what you're doing or what you're letting yourself in for. Don't you think so, Ake?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. If you get a job, it's really good to have a job, but you need to understand that we live in a country where the color of our skin sometimes some people are not don't feel comfortable with the color of our skin. So of course, not everyone is racist, but racism play a big part in the workplace. So if you find a job, don't rush to sign to start working because you need to read your contract. Because what is the point of getting a job if you're supposed to be paid, for example, £10 an hour, and you get paid £5 an hour? So that's labor exploitation because your rent will not go down because your employer is paying you lower than you're supposed to get paid. And if you lose your contract of
Exactly.
employment, just simply request a new one from HR. There is nothing stopping you doing that.
I do understand what you're trying to say. It's just that sometimes we want the job so bad, and we think that that's what we are entitled to. Thinking that because we are African, first of all, as you mentioned before, that English not being our first language, so you get a job that's paying you £10 an hour. You're thinking, yay, this job is really paying me well. That you accept everything that comes with it. You accept everything that comes with it. But as you mentioned as well, your rent is not going to be below because they pay you that £5 an hour, and your job, your rent is going down to less than what you had to pay because you're getting less. They don't really mind. Whatever you get paid at work is none of their business, as long as they charging you your rent and you paying that exact rent. Thank you, really. Thank you so much, Akitu. Thank you so much, Aki, to really give us that. So I just want you to let us really to educate us on it a little bit. You give us the advice that we need because you are the best one. You is really is your field. Give us all the advice that we need, what we need to do, what we need to know that we don't know. I'm gonna give you that time to do that. Tell us what we need to know that we don't know, how we should go with things. However you want to do it, it's up to you now.
Well, yeah, I think what I said really is when you before you need to your employer needs to give you a contract of employment for the very first day of your employment. So either before or the first day you start your employment. It is a legal requirement for your employer to give you that contract before you start. So of course some employer will wait until the day you start. But when they give you, you don't know what is in there and you did not take the time to read it. So if they give you on the very first day, that's cool. They have given you the contract. You don't have any obligation to sign because you have a right to read the contract and to get somebody who knows the law to inform you. So you can get your contract, start working, no obligation to sign. Once you have read the contract, you are happy with it, and then you can sign. No employer can force you to sign your contract. If they force you to sign the contract, then they are bullying you, and you can take action against your employer. But what I really want people to understand is that you have employment right. Even if you are a refugee who does not have the legal right to work, you still have employment right. And when I say that, sometimes people are surprised, or an asylum seeker who does not have the legal right to work as a general rule. So, but also have employment right. But if you are an asylum seeker listening to me today, it does not mean that you have to go and work because I said you have a permanent right. Because if you do that, you will be in breach of your immigration condition and it will affect your immigration application, your asylum application. So asylum seekers need to understand that they don't have the legal right to work unless they have been away for more than 12 months, then they can submit an application to the Home Office for permission to work. But if you are being exploited as a victim of labor exploitation and you're an asylum seeker and I still have employment rights, but many people sometimes are being brought from back home to the UK and are being exploited, and an employer often tell them that if you go report me, then I will report you to the Home Office and we're gonna deport you. But people are scared and they get stuck in this exploitation. So people need to remember that they are law, the law exists. If you don't know just get in touch with us or with the local citizens of yours, for example, they can give you some advice. But we deal with immigration law, employment law, and human rights law. We are working with different partners who can help. If you get in touch with us and we don't know, then we will try to get information for you and then come back to you because obviously we don't know everything. But this is really my advice is that before you work, get your contract of employment. Once you have your contract of employment, read it. If you don't understand, get in touch with us. We can help you read the contract. If you haven't been paid, get in touch with us. If you need to write a disciplinary, if you need to write a grievance letter, for example, get in touch with us. We can help as well. So there are a lot of opportunity and for people to get help. So don't suffer in silence in your corner because that's what many employer would want you to do. And simply because you are who you are, because we have the color we have, many employer will still think in their head that we are still their slave. And don't take it.
Wow, that was a really great advice that you've just given, Ake, and it's something that many of us really need to know. It's something that we had the right to know, but we didn't know. So I will not take much of your time. I can see you're a very busy person. As we spoke before, you have things to do just after this. So I'm gonna have to let you go and do your things and carry on with saving those people that are getting sacked unlawfully. Is there anything else you want to tell me before you go?
Just if anyone want to get in touch with us, really, they can contact us. They can check on Twitter. So it's migrants at work. They can get in touch with us. They can DM us, and if we are able to help, we will help because our job really is to help our community because no one else but us can help our community, and that's what we are here for.
Can I just ask Ray to have the details of Ake go through this quiz so many people will be able to contact them? Really sorry guys for the technical issues today. As you see, it's not our fault. It's Zoom that we're using. A lot of people at home, a lot of people using internet, a lot of people using the Wi-Fi, so the Wi-Fi does it tend to get a bit slow. So we have lost Ake, but it's not a problem. We're gonna have the details of Ake come forward. All the numbers is gonna go down the screen. Ray's gonna put it there for you guys if you need help. One thing I want to tell you guys, I think I'm gonna say this in Lingala so many of you understand. Misala misuto ke kosala, toye baba droit na bisote. Tozoye bate vraiment que musala oyo na e kosala ba droit na nga ezanini. Toza ko accepter makambo ebele na ba place à misala. Toza ko accepter que balongola biso na musala facilement. Toza ko accepter que manager alobela yo na ba langage moko ya impolitesse juste parce que tozo mi lobela que toza ba noir, toza ba africain et puis yango que toza ko mériter. Tobo sanate que malgré toza ba africain, malgré toye koya, mais toza pe na ba droit na biso. Toza pe na ba droit na biso. Toza pe na ba association oyo eza wana juste pour na kolandela que biso ba immigré toza la bien. Juste pour na kolandela que biso ba immigré toza la bien na musala toye ba droit na biso. Toyebi que la plupart entre nous toye ba vraiment makambona te, including myself, toye ba rango vraiment te, mais à travers cette émission et le rotozo luka kosala na communauté congolaise bien communauté africaine et ça que toye la bino ba makambo bino bozana droit ya koyeba mais oyo boyebi te ko accepter te que ovandika ka boye OK musala lelo lobby manager a lobby na que c'est bon you are sacked ba créer histoire moko boye mais tellement que oyebi te place ni ya okende oyebi te place ni ya bandela ozo baté na banda rotuna nani na banda koloba nini mbala moka accepter. Je sais que ebelende bozotala nga siko na minute Bon, se retrouver que nous sommes au perdant misala, bon yebi ata mutuna makolote, mais manager kaka soit azanaye, soit aza raciste ou bien aza mutumo kaza ba problème ou bien azane ka que asepeli na yote, alukelo ba problème amoro non, ningo za boire to longoli yo. Yo peut tellement que oh tu déjà na mutuna yo, esprit à limitation que naza immigré, naza réfugié, naza africain, anglais za langue nangalte et tout. Ah, aussi ka accepter ba longola o musala. Ceux qui osent un problème dans la minute oyo. Ceux qui osent se retrouver dans problème dans la minute oyo. Et belé balongoli bango ba misala par rapport à corona, mais azoe baté est-ce que faut ba futa ngambongo, to ba futa ngate, faut na sala nini? Ah balobi na ngaka que corona have been made redundant. Okay. You be made redundant. Okay. Balongoli o musala pour na corona, est-ce que oyebi ba droit na yo? Et tant qu'Africain, et tant qu'immigré, oyebi ba droit na yo. Soko yebi ba droit na ote, n'hésitez pas de contacter Ake Achi, azawana ba detel yangwana ba cheli biso. Soko yebi ke oyebi ba droit na yo te. Oze bate what to do. Oze bate comment tu peux faire. Tu te retrouves que oze na musala moro ya bien ba longoli yo. Ou bien manager a luké leur problème, aswani so na musala olongwe. Pour contacter Ake azawana, il faut to luka akoye ba droit na biso. Tant que nous nous comment comprendre le droit à bisoter, je ne pense pas que bisope na your right to know, to stopper toujours koye la bino bani, to stopper te, to bandaka koye la bino babilo ko o bino boza na droit de savoir, droit de connaître, your right to know, ou peut-être tozo négligé. Non, beta sou moi c'était nelo comme qui est vraiment la famille, faut faire un effort de lire. Avant il y a signé contrat moko. Faut vraiment faire un effort de lire. Aujourd'hui, contrat, à tes 10 pages. Zwa ton ayo malembe. Zwa ton ayo malembe. Le l'autre ta page moko. So monique anglais za makasi. Et ana ba clause moko zo comprendre te. Luka batu o bakoki ko aider yo. Luka batu bakoki ko tangela yo. Toi na African French community French speaking community support ezawana so monique ozana besoin aide batangela yo eloko ozo comprendre te yaka nango ba otangela yo oyeba tango ozo tia signature na yo oyebi ke ngai naza ko signer eloko naza ko signer na yebi eloko naza ko signer kaka te juste pour signer après lobby e komi ah o signer ke eloko yo ba eloba no likambu ozo yeba te eloko ekomelinga ndenge nini mais ozobosana ke o signer ki contrat moko sans le savoir. Yo vandi na ndaku soko moni pe ke ozana information oyo la communauté africaine bazana besoin ya koyeba, why don't you get in touch with us? Ko vanda ka na or mon côté o vandeli ngo ozobombango pona yo moko. Information oyo garder e ko sauvenga e ko sauver bato belé et que sauver communauté africaine mobimba. Alors pourquoi on va dans la ndako? Sans une information monique on a besoin de yeba the hot seat is empty. Et zelayo oya o vanda oye bisabiso information ngape na zana ngoya ngoyo na sala la place boye na yebi que ba droit na biso eza boye mais communauté na nga ba yebi ngote. Boye la biso nyoso obino boyebi to partager knowledge ensemble. Pour na komeka un peu ko changer mentalité ya communauté africaine, pour na komeka peu ko changer vie ya communauté africaine, komeka ko changer ko kata ba boundaries, ba limitation autozanango ko katango. I really hope vraiment que vous sepayez na émission lelo malgré technical problems that we had. I will see you next Thursday for another edition of Your Right to Know.